Peep game. I'm going to talk about how having a binary worldview can hold you back. But before I go any further, I'll say that this is something that can go off into many different tangents. And in order to not do that, I'm just going to keep this a little bit more streamlined. This could be a full-blown topic that really I would need to dedicate to an article. To really get that long content, to really get some mileage out of it, I would probably need to do an article. But I want to keep this streamlined, so I'm really going to try not to go off into too many different tangents. When it comes to a binary worldview, let's look at it in terms of binary thinking. Now, when it comes to binary thinking, it's thinking of things as either or. It's a type of thinking that is just two-sided. Just two sides to a coin, no in between. Just from doing some research, it's seen as the safest way of thinking. But that safe way of thinking can keep you boxed in. It can keep you in a comfort zone. That way of thinking is simplistic. And I can tell you right now, risk takers do not think that way. And one of the reasons I'm touching on this is for the entrepreneurial aspect. You can't be an entrepreneur if you think that way. When it comes to this type of thinking, there's something called false dilemma. Some people might call it fake dilemma, but I guess the professionals out there call it false dilemma. What a false dilemma is a false claim that says something can only be either or. And what that does is it forces whoever is being presented with this false dilemma to make a choice between the two options that are presented to them. Now, I say a good example of a false dilemma is an election. And I say that because when it's all said and done, we can only choose between a Democrat and a Republican. Those are your only two options. Those are your only two options, even though there are other political parties. You have parties like the Green Party, the Libertarian Party, the Constitution Party, etc. There are all these different political parties, but when it comes to an election, it all falls on Democrat or Republican. Left wing, right wing. Those are your two options. Ladies and gents, that is a false dilemma. Now, some other examples of a false dilemma would be, you should read every day, or you're stupid. Another example would be, you should support the candidate that I think is best for society, or you don't care about society at all. Another one would be, you have to vote, or you don't have the right to voice your opinion. Another false dilemma would be, you should be anti-abortion, or you think it's okay for babies to be killed. For the intelligent folks out there, for the smart ones paying attention, we know that all that is bullshit. We know that shit ain't that cut and dry. It's not that cut and dry. It's not either or. There is some gray area there. So a false dilemma is a fallacy in logic. And a lot of times it is presented by someone who is trying to assert authority of some kind or dominance in the discussion, argument, debate, whichever. So what I say to that is, don't get into any pointless debate and allow someone to trap you in an either or argument. Real talk, it's your opponent's way of trying to control both sides of the argument. We see and hear false dilemmas in real time, all day, every day. A false dilemma is an aggressive form of influence and can be used as propaganda. Just to break it down in a list format, it makes things seem strictly black and white with no gray area. It can be framed as us versus them, or you're either with us or you're against us. It can be framed as what's called an excluded middle. Basically, what that means is something has to be true or false, with no consideration for the degrees of truth between the two extremes. It can create a false choice, a choice that is not actually meant to solve a problem that is presented. It can create a false alternative. And what that means is the alternatives in choice is misrepresented. An example of that could be an ad that pops up on your computer screen and it requires you to click yes or no to improving your health. Now, if you don't answer that pop-up, it can be assumed that you don't want to improve your health, when really you just didn't want to respond to the ad. You can't come to the conclusion that I don't want to improve my health because I didn't respond to some stupid ad. That doesn't make any sense. But in real life, in the real world, in reality, most of the time, there are alternatives. There are more alternatives. There are more choices. I bring this up because I think that some people just see things as either or. Some people feel that they have to choose the lesser of two evils, when in reality, there are more options. There are more choices. Now, when it comes to a false dilemma, oftentimes the general population gets caught up in that. We could say it's by people in power or by a system, the government, whoever. We get caught up in a false dilemma when in reality, we have more options. We have more choices. My thing is, don't allow yourself to get caught up in a false dilemma. Exercise most, if not all, of your choices. And this isn't just for an election. Really, this should be for all facets of life. Whatever and wherever and whenever you see this false dilemma, don't get caught up in that. Do not get caught up in that. Exercise your many options. Going back to binary worldview, binary thinking, the flip side of that is what's called directional thinking. That's an upward type of thinking where there's room to exercise more options. There is room to move up and level up however you see fit. It's not just the either or type deal. You don't hit the wall with that type of thinking. You're able to either climb over the wall or break down the wall or walk around the wall. But either which way, it's not finite. It's not this or that. You could get with this or you could get with that. It's not that type of thinking. It's not that type of thinking. It's really not. Not that whole get with this or get with that. Nah, it's not that. There's room for progression. There's more room to evolve. There's more room to choose a better option. There's more room to pick a different route. There's more room to pick a different route to get to your destination. There's nothing blocking you. There's nothing getting in your way. There's no mental block. There is no lesser of two evils bullshit. Alternatives, baby.